Okay, now just real quick, I want to go over the character sheet. Okay, so what we have here is what your character sheet looks like. This is where all of the core pieces of D&D show up. Okay, this main page holds a lot of information, and I want to just quickly go through all of the little pieces. So at the top here, we have our abilities. So our abilities, again, are strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. And based on the numbers you put in from your standard array, or the arrays you picked, it depends your modifier. So I gave my dexterity has a 16, which gives me a +3 to dexterity checks. Charisma +2, wisdom 0, regardless as it comes. I may ask you at times to do what is called a dexterity saving throw. For instance, if someone shoots a fireball at you that's about to explode in your radius, a dexterity saving throw would be you attempting to jump out of the way to take less or no damage from that attack. So, if you do a dexterity saving throw, you would roll a d20 and then add the 3 here to help affect it. You can also just click on it and roll it. Now, I rolled a natural 1, which is not great, but regardless, you can click on that. You can get the number from it, and then you can change or you can just do the math with that. So if I ever ask you to do a strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, or charisma saving throw, or any kind of check based on them, these are it. Remember, anytime you do a check or any real time I ask you to roll a dice in Dungeons and Dragons, it's a d20 plus or minus the modifier, or again, find it in roll 20 and just click on it and it will just roll a dice for you, just to be said. Okay, as it goes, the next thing I want to describe is proficiency bonus, just a +2. This math is generally done for you, but it just means that if you have proficiency in a skill, something that you picked in creating your character, you get an extra +2, which is generally taken from. You have your speed. Your speed is how far you can move in combat per turn. So 30 feet means that you can move 30 feet per turn in combat. We will get into an explanation of combat, but that's just to explain it here. Um, your health is just how much hit points you have. If I tell you take damage, then you can hit damage, and then, or I think it's like you hit 3 and then you hit damage and it takes it away. Or if you heal, you can type in 3 and then hit heal, and it gives you HP. So if you ever get temporary HP, you write it here, but it's really not too important. Um, and then also over here, we have some of the other skills. So the abilities are these 6 things up here. We also have this area over here, which explains saving throws. So if I actually ask you to make a dexterity saving throw, you click down here to make a +5 dexterity saving throw. Again, all of this will come up playing. I hope you ask questions as we play, but just to kind of describe. As it stands here, though, we have our skills. So skills are where you take the ability scores that we had, these very broad six topics, and you break them out into realistic situations. So for instance, your charisma, as I said, it has to do with your ability to interact with the people, but your charisma comes up in your performance, your persuasion and things like that, your intimidation, and those are all here in the skills column. This little dot here shows you have proficiency. So earlier in your character creation, you may have picked proficiency in certain things, and this little dot is where it comes up, and that denotes another +2 in some of these skills. So just something to note that this is where you see skills. Sometimes I may ask you to do an acrobatics check, an animal handling check, an arcana check, things like that. This is where you come to do that. Um, Over here, we have our proficiencies in training. This just shows what you can use: light armor, crossbow, hand weapons, longbow, etc., and what languages you speak. This is just an area to always look at. If you were to try to use items in your spot over here, your action spot, you want to make sure that you actually have proficiency in them. The game will tell you it somewhat annoyingly that if you don't, but just so you know. Um, as it stands, to explain over here, this is kind of your area where you have a little bit of everything. You have your actions, which have to do with combat and things you can do in combat. And as you look down here, You can see you have your rapier, the sword that I equipped. You have your hit slash DC, and you can click here to roll the hit DC, and you can click here to roll the damage. Um, I'll get into combat another thing, but just to go over it, all of your actions here in combat are here. Some things are denoted as actions, some things are denoted as bonus actions down here, which are different things you can do in combat. I will get over to explaining it at a point, but I just want to say it. In your spells, you can select the spells you have. If you go into manage spells, it's really important if you're a spellcaster, come to the spells tab. You may need to come into manage spells, and then here it will say that you can add spells because I have 0 of 2 cantrips and 0 of 4 known spells. This is definitely a little tricky because it wasn't in the character creation, which I think is stupid. But you need to come here and you need to look at all the spells. And then now I can read through all these spells and add them. There is a lot of spells. It is daunting. If you don't know what to pick, you can ask me. I can tell you what my opinion are some of the best spells. But also, it can be fun to read through all of the options. And, sometimes there's spells that I don't normally see come up, and they're good. All the spells have their own utility. So, a lot of options to pick from. If you want to keep it simple, maybe don't go for a spellcaster, but just so you know, this is here. So, make sure you pick your spells if you're a spellcaster. And then your inventory, we picked this earlier, but this is where you can make sure you have items equipped by this red dot, and also kind of just look through different items you have. Your features and traits can help explain different things. Like once again, you can read through your bardic inspiration, things like that, and some of the other backgrounds of your character. And that's really about it. Just to go over the character sheet real quick. Um, it is a little complex, um, but that's just a basic overview, and we'll go over it more. So hopefully that helps.